Hey everyone, today we are tackling something that can feel really uncomfortable. Asking for what you need at work, whether that's a raise, more resources, or support from your manager. If you've ever felt nervous, worried, or just frozen at the thought of asking for something important, you are not alone. Most of us have hidden fears that make it hard to speak up, even when we know it's reasonable and even necessary. Today, we're going to break it down step by step using our communication framework so you can ask for what you need confidently and effectively. Welcome to Communication Skills for Working Women. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Rose May. Do you find yourself second guessing or avoiding conversations because you're worried about being misunderstood?
You're not alone. On this show, we're sharing tangible tools for assertiveness, emotional resilience, and real life communication wins and fails.
Let's sharpen our communication together. I had a client who had been in her role for 3 years. She'd taken on some additional responsibilities. She trained, she mentored some junior team members, and she consistently exceeded her performance goals. She knew she was underpaid compared to market rates because she'd done the research, and she knew she should ask for a raise. But every time she thought about scheduling that conversation with her manager, she'd feel a wave of anxiety and find some reason to put it off. I'll wait until next quarter, she thought, or I don't want to seem greedy, or what if they say no and then things are awkward, which valid concern. And eventually she said, you know what? I know I need to ask, so why can't I just do it? And that's when we started to dig into what was really going on. And what we uncovered was that she wasn't just afraid of hearing no, she was afraid that asking would make her seem ungrateful or pushy or difficult. Beneath that was an even bigger assumption. If I ask for more, people will think I'm not a team player and I'll lose the relationships and respect I've worked so hard to build. Valid concern again. But once we got into some of those underlying beliefs and we can see that her hidden commitment, we could uncover what her hidden commitments were and test some of her assumptions, everything shifted for her. She prepared her case, she scheduled the conversation, and she asked clearly and confidently. And in that situation, not only did she get the raise, she also realized that her manager had been waiting for her to advocate for herself. Dang. So the conversation didn't really damage the relationship. By no means at all did it damage the relationship. It actually strengthened the relationship. So let's walk through our framework and figure out how we can get to that point where, this client was able to get to eventually.
Step one, we want to clarify that goal. So, this client, we want her to sit back and really consider what is the thing that she needs to accomplish. So, in here, we would say, I want to ask for a raise or a needed resource in a way that is professional, clear, and confident. So, not only asking for what they want, but how they want to do it in a professional, clear, and confident way. So notice just really how specific that is. It's not just about asking, it's about really being effective. But here's the thing, even when we genuinely want something, part of us often works against that goal. Just like we heard with Rosemary's client, she would wait or she would find a reason to not do it. And that's what we're going to kind of dig into and what we really need to understand so that we can reach this goal.
So there are two parts to this step. One is identifying the behaviors that support the goal, and the second is noticing the behaviors that fight the goal. So what are the specific actions that will actually help you reach that goal? So for example, preparing your case thoroughly, gathering evidence of your contributions, market rates, and achievements. Setting up the conversation professionally, that's going to help be helpful also. So scheduling dedicated time instead of catching your manager off guard. Never a good idea to catch people off guard when it comes to these kinds of things. Framing your request collaboratively. So focusing on value and partnership and not entitlement. And a lot of this has to do with the way that we phrase our desires and our requests. Practicing regulation. Ooh, managing your own nerves so you can show up grounded and clear, and inviting dialogue. So asking for input and being ready to listen and negotiate. These are all behaviors that we can practice. They're visible steps we can take toward our goal. But there are some things that get in the way of our goal. So even when we want to ask for our needs, part of us might fight against that goal because for many reasons, but some of those ways are procrastinating or avoiding the conversation. I'll do it next month or after this project or when things calm down. Actively fighting against your goal. Sometimes we under-explain or apologize too much. I hate to ask, but, or I know this might be a bad time, but, right? Overthinking possible objections and staying silent. So our brains just go over and over and over all the reasons why they might say no, running through the every worst case scenario until you talk yourself out of it. Downplaying your accomplishments is also a behavior that gets in the way of your goal. I mean, I just did what anyone else would do. Oh, it wasn't really that big of a deal, or yada, 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 right? Or waiting for someone to notice an offer. Listen, we all know after being in the workforce that no one's going to notice and offer you stuff, right? You have to be your own advocate. Hoping your manager will magically realize you deserve more is probably not the best way to move forward. So, this framework is going to help us notice these behaviors without judgment because they do really reveal something important. They reveal that we have these unconscious hidden commitments that are keeping us stuck.
So, identifying the hidden commitments are those internal promises that we make to ourselves, often unconsciously. And when we take time to really recognize what behaviors we are doing and what behaviors we aren't doing, that's when those hidden commitments start to reveal themselves. So, these commitments compete with our stated goal. And they usually very quietly undermine it. So they might sound something like, I'm committed to not being seen as greedy or pushy. I'm committed to maintaining harmony and not making waves. I'm committed to being like my manager and colleagues. I'm committed to not seeming ungrateful for what I already have. I'm committed to proving I'm low maintenance and easy to work with. These commitments aren't bad. They were often developed as survival strategies, ways to stay safe, accepted, and valued in environments where speaking up felt risky. But here's the problem. When these hidden commitments run the show, they keep us playing small, even when the ask is reasonable, when it's fair, and when it's necessary.
I hope that as we go through this framework, you notice patterns in some of those hidden commitments. These hidden commitments that we're expressing today are not uncommon, and they're not new or novel to some of the hidden commitments we've talked about in other situations. But I think that as we go through, we can recognize how these patterns are keeping us stuck in so many different aspects of our lives. So as you're identifying these hidden commitments, like really pay attention to the pattern. Where else are these hidden commitments showing up for you, and how are they preventing you from accomplishing the tasks that you would like to accomplish? So the next step is to examine those big assumptions. Behind those commitments are these huge assumptions or these beliefs that drive our fear. These assumptions feel like absolute truths, but they're actually predictions we've never tested, often never tested. So, some common big assumptions around asking for a raise is if I ask for more, they'll think I'm greedy or entitled. If I negotiate, they'll say no and I'll be embarrassed. People in authority don't like being challenged or questioned. If I ask and they say no, it means I'm not valued here. Good employees shouldn't have to ask, they should just be recognized. Or if I push too hard, I'll damage my relationship with my manager. The great news is that these assumptions are testable. You can design small experiments to see if they're actually true or if they're just fear-based predictions keeping you stuck.
This section of these big assumptions, how it's just these subtle shifts from really often what our behaviors are what we're doing or not doing, and how we've created these stories in our head, these assumptions around things. And so this next step of experimenting can feel a little scary, but also be really exciting because you can actually do something about it. We're going to experiment on how to ask effectively. So, we're going to talk about some practical steps that you can try. These are your experiments. Experiment number one, prepare your case. Gather evidence of your contributions, market rates, and achievements. What specific projects have you led or contributed to? What measurable results have you delivered? What additional responsibilities have you taken on? And what is the market rate for your role and experience level? Know exactly what you want and why. It is a reasonable ask. This isn't about entitlement, it's about data. There's no emotion with it, it's just giving the information.
Elizabeth, something that you said a couple lines ago, you said that these are ways to test your assumptions and build new capacity. Build new capacity really resonated with me because I think that sometimes we get comfortable.
Hmm.
And well, I shouldn't say comfortable. Everybody's comfortable in where they are. And building new capacity requires like stepping forward and experimenting and trying something that can be really, really scary. Um, and so I
I
don't know, that just really resonated with me when you said that.
the capacity stuff comes from, we'll have to link it in the show notes. It's this woman on Instagram.
Oh, Rachel, the capacity. Is it Rachel?
Yeah, Raquel, I think.
Raquel, yes.
Raquel, the capacity coach, I think is
Yeah,
her
I
name.
like her. Yeah.
But I use her stuff all the time for myself, for my kids, where I'm like, you're expanding your capacity. This
Hmm.
should feel uncomfortable. You're expanding your capacity. And so I hear the word capacity often now, and it's great to be able to
Yeah.
expand our capacity.
Well, and if you think about like the capacity of like a balloon or something like that,
Yeah.
right? It has to stretch in order to hold more. Has to stretch in every direction in order to hold more. And these experiments are designed to help you hold more and to stretch.
Yeah.
Um, Another experiment that you can run is set up the conversation professionally. So schedule a dedicated time instead of dropping it on your manager unexpectedly, whether it's putting it on their calendar, whether it's one-on-one, like interaction face to face, asking to speak about something that might be important to you, right? But schedule a time, right? You don't want stuff just popping up on people's radar and then having to forcing them to deal with it in the moment. It's really not beneficial to most people.
And you'll get a better result
Yes.
if they know when you're meeting and why you're meeting.
Yeah.
And so it's for your benefit to schedule a time. Experiment three, frame your request collaboratively. Focus on your value, not on entitlement. It isn't about what you deserve. It's really about what you guys can create together in your organization.
And how that compensation should reflect what you can create in your organization.
Yes,
Very,
absolutely.
very important.
Yes.
Another experiment you can run is practice and regulate your nerves. I feel like we should be doing this regularly, right? Not just in this situation, but this is something that we really ought to engage in on a regular basis, right?
Mhm.
So before the conversation, just pause and breathe. Notice what's happening in your body. Remember that anxiety isn't a sign that you shouldn't be doing this. It's just that your nervous system is responding to something that feels very important. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, right? Like you care about this. This is something that is meaningful for you. And so your nervous system is responding to that. Keep that in mind as you try to practice regulating your nerves.
Absolutely. Another experiment. Invite dialogue, don't demand. So ask for input and show you're open to the conversation. That means you're going to have to be super clear and stay curious when you open yourself up for dialogue. It's really important to stay curious so that you can receive that in a positive way and not get defensive.
And finally, prepare for different responses, right? This is another experiment you can do, right? Prepare yourself for different responses. Your manager might say yes, they might say no, or they might say something in between. And here's how to respond. If they say yes, thank you. I really appreciate this recognition of my work. I'm excited to continue contributing at this level. Boom, done. If they say no, I understand. Can you help me understand what would need to happen for this to be possible in the future? What benchmarks or timeline should I be working toward? Notice how specific those questions are, right? There's accountability on both parts, but it also gives you clarity in what needs to be done, right? If they say, not now, but maybe later, You can always respond with, I appreciate you considering this. Can we schedule a follow-up conversation in 3 months, 6 months, 90 days to, oh, that's the same as 3 months, to revisit this, right? So you can schedule a follow-up conversation. And notice that even no gives you valuable information. You know where you stand, and you can make informed decisions about your next steps.
Well, I love having responses ready to the yes, no, or maybe. And it's just so empowering to have information because the answer might be no because there might not be budget or
Exactly.
right? Like, and so it's not that you're not valued, it's that there's not funding for it or and so then it's like, wait, okay, do I still want to be here?
Exactly.
It gives you so much information to be able to decide what you really want and need. Do I need to start looking somewhere else? Is there something else within the company? Like there's just a million options. I shouldn't say a million. There's always options and the more information you have, the better choices you can make. So our last step is to reflect and adjust. After the conversation, reflect on what went well and what didn't. Take all of this as data. What assumptions were tested? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your manager or about the organization? And what would you do differently next time? Each conversation is the chance to build confidence and refine your approach. This is a skill, and like any skill, it gets easier with practice. You might not get more comfortable with practice, but it gets
Definitely
easier
not.
with practice.
Facts.
Here's your homework. Identify one need you want to ask for. Prepare your case. Gather all the evidence so that you can go in prepared. Step three, schedule a time to have that conversation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Create that time. Four, notice any fears, hidden commitments, or assumptions that come up. Write them down and test them. And then your last step, experiment with acting despite your fear. Don't wait to be comfortable. You just need to go with it. Asking for what you need is not selfish, it is professional. It is fair and necessary for your growth. And it opens up opportunities for all other women. Every time a woman takes a step, anytime anyone, not just a woman, anytime any person decides to do something that is beneficial for themselves, it just opens up more opportunities for all of us
Absolutely.
to continue to make good choices and do the things that are helpful for us as we grow and develop. So you can totally do this.
If today's episode resonated with you, here's what we want you to do. First, take one small action step this week. Don't wait until you feel ready. You're never gonna feel ready. I remember talking to someone and saying, I want to wait until I'm ready to have kids. And then I had kids and I was like, there's never a day where I was gonna feel ready for this. Start gathering your data. Draft the email to schedule the conversation. Practice saying your ask out loud. Secondly, share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it. You know someone who's been putting off this conversation because y'all been talking about it at lunch or something like that. Send them this episode and tell them, let's do this together. And third, if you want more support navigating these conversations, sign up for our one-on-one coaching at communicateconnectthrive.com. You deserve to be compensated fairly for the value you bring. Don't let fear keep you from asking. Until next time, speak clearly and listen bravely. When you feel confident in your communication, everything changes.
We'd love to hear your wins, failures, and insights on Instagram at Communication Skills for Women. Leave a review and connect with us.
Until next time, speak clearly and listen bravely.